Good day, and welcome to the WANA webinar series. As you will notice, all participants have been muted today. If you have a question to ask, please send your questions into the Q&A panel located in the bottom right-hand side of your screen, and your question will be answered after the presentation. If you have any technical issues, please send a private chat to the host, the directions of which you can find in the chat window. Thank you for joining today, and please welcome Michael Hamlin of Fountain House.
Hello, and welcome to the latest in our WANA webinar series, We Are Not Alone, Growing Stronger Together. My name is Michael Hamlin, and I am a member of Fountain House in New York City and part of the team helping to coordinate these webinars. Today's offering, entitled How Are We Doing? Clubhouses Gathering Data with Our Worldwide Surveys During This Pandemic, aims to highlight the importance of continuous assessment, looking at how we can best serve our members and staff and how we can meet our needs together during a time of emergency and change. The surveys used in collecting the information you'll hear about today were created by people in the Clubhouse community who are committed to reaching out and checking in, asking directors and members questions that will allow us together to learn and grow where it matters most. I, as a member of a Clubhouse, appreciate being reached out to like this and that people would take the time to elicit my experience in such a thoughtful and intentional way. So with that, I'll introduce you to today's moderator, Lee Kellogg from Clubhouse International.
Thank you, Michael, and hello, everyone. It's great to be connecting with you today to share information on these surveys. We have an excellent panel with us today to explain some early results and future potential of the important data that your clubhouses are submitting. The physical distancing that became necessary around the world in order to help contain this pandemic happened quickly and widely. And although we still don't know the full impact, we knew that clubhouses would rise to the occasion by utilizing the strong relationships, the organized approach to clubhouse work, and the resilience central to the clubhouse model. A collaboration of clubhouse leaders and research partners quickly came together, including, in alphabetical order, Club Itaca, Roma, Clubhouse International, Fountain House, Magnolia Clubhouse, Michigan State University, the Program for Clubhouse Research at the University of Massachusetts, and Wayne State University. We agreed that it would be important to capture data to help us understand the essential needs and actions of Clubhouse communities during this historic time, to provide knowledge and to strengthen our clubhouses. This is also an opportunity to demonstrate Clubhouse effectiveness in the new virtual delivery support that we have seen highlighted in this webinar series. As a result, we came up with two survey designs, a member survey and a director survey. The member survey is designed to evaluate whether members' basic needs are being met, what technologies members have access to, and how members are doing in these difficult times. We're getting a really great response from clubhouses with over 1,400 responses on the survey one members already. We're using a rolling Friday deadline, but they're longitudinal, meaning we'll be able to track changes with members over time. Survey 2, 3, and 4 come with pre-filled information and fewer overall questions, so it will be quicker for clubhouses and members to fill out. And we'll be phasing these surveys out as clubhouses reopen their physical space. I wanted to point out that these surveys are anonymous. We're not asking for diagnoses. Because it's an ongoing survey, it is not too late to get involved, so please have your clubhouses join in if you haven't already. And members, we've had some questions about members filling out the member survey, which of course is absolutely okay. We just want to make sure that there's a coordinated effort at the Clubhouse to collect the ID numbers associated with the surveys. So some overall coordination is happening. The director survey is a monthly survey, and we're looking to gather things like what were the dates that Clubhouse buildings may have closed, the number of connections that Clubhouses had with members before and during the building closures, methods of communication and technology being employed, any funding and staffing changes as a result, and the direct impact of the virus on members and staff. We asked for the first director survey to be completed on April 30th. And again, this one is also ongoing, so please submit if you haven't. And this is a monthly survey, so we're going to use the end of May for the next deadline. And any Clubhouses that are filling out surveys are getting, with the director survey, you'll get an aggregate report. And with the member survey, it will be a specific report to your Clubhouse. So really my pleasure to introduce today's panel, who will be sharing more information on info surrounding the surveys, including some initial results from the member and director reports and some more on potential future uses. So our panel includes Guido Valentini from Club Itaca, Roma, Lori D'Angelo from Magnolia Clubhouse in Cleveland, Ohio, Francesca Pernice from Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan, and Kevin Rice from Fountain House in New York. The panel will be presenting in that order, and we will have time at the end for questions and answers. So I turn it over to Guido. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee, and thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone. So my name is Guido Valentini, and I am the director of Club Itaca Roma. As you all know, Italy was affected by the COVID-19 already at the beginning of March, and we had to face physical distancing and general lockdown from one day to the other. Immediately, a couple of questions came up in our minds. How can we support members if we can't do side-by-side work? And how can we convince our donors to keep supporting the Clubhouse if people do not frequent as we are obliged to stay home? All of us had to find a way to keep supporting members even with the physical distancing. And we had to prove it to our donors just to keep receiving the money. Otherwise, we could not make it through this tsunami called coronavirus. So we started to promote new activities supporting members at home, organizing the virtual Clubhouses. All of us have done this great work. A lot of new experiences started, different to anything done before. Members supporting other members by video call. Our band playing music together, each one sitting on their own couch at home. Units meeting and cooking classes done connecting by computers, and much, much more. Together, even if we are in different places. Just like in this moment, we are enjoying this webinar from other parts of the ocean. So we were, and we are right now, demonstrating that the Clubhouse model is adaptive and effective, even during such an emergency situation with social distancing. Isn't this great? Of course, our model is still based on the side-by-side work. Just we have some additional tools now to support and facilitate members, also using information and communication technology. But now we have to demonstrate this effectiveness also to the rest of the world, especially to our donors, governors, and supporters. How can we do this? Here comes a strategic goal of the survey we are presenting today. Together with the other colleagues, we decided to collect trustful data from all the clubhouses in every country, and to use those data to do sharp analysis and to prove with scientific confidence that our clubhouse model works. And we are not alone is not just a slogan, but it's something real, even during physical distancing. So here we are, and thanks to the research group, because now we have an efficient survey to prove that we are successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Guido. And thank you to everyone who's completed the survey. As Lee mentioned, we have over 1,400 member surveys to date and 161 director surveys and 229 member survey twos. So for any of you who have not yet joined us in this effort, we encourage you to do so. Here's some information from the member survey one. We had basic questions asking some general information about living circumstances, the date the member last attended the clubhouse, frequency of attendance, medical conditions that could be difficult for general health, people's status in employment and education, all this to see what's changed as a result of COVID-19. And we're going to go through some of the major findings. A question related to emergency room use. You can see that there were very few people actually using emergency rooms, 8% of the answers, and 91% did not need the emergency rooms of those answered. We looked at whether the reason for needing the emergency room was medical or psychiatric. So for those 8%, 3/4 had a medical reason for needing the emergency room visit. And we also looked at whether the visit was advised medically and whether or not it was COVID related. Most instances, it was not COVID related at this point in time. We asked the same kind of questions about hospital admissions. And again, just over 8% of people responding to the survey had an admission to a hospital. We also asked whether there was a crisis that the clubhouse staff or member felt was averted because of staff and clubhouse support. So you can see by this graph that the top boxes show the number of crises that were averted by interventions from the clubhouse. So a small amount, fortunately there weren't too many crises, but those that were averted had to do with helping people stick with medical advice for COVID and not going to medical services if they weren't needed. Also helping people feel more comfortable and less in need of the hospital. We asked how people were doing. It was an open-ended question with many, many results, now at least 1,400, sorry. And the results of these comments describe a range of how people are doing, as you would expect, from well, and different ways people are coping, and some people are struggling. Many people talked about missing being at the clubhouse, but I would say going through 1,400 comments, about 2/3 of the people are really doing well and often commented on feeling surprisingly well and feeling that the COVID-19 had limited or not much impact on how they were doing, and often that was attributed to the clubhouse supports and the clubhouse making the difference. So this is really great information for us to have collectively. As we know how things are going at our own clubhouse, it's really encouraging to see that people are doing pretty well. I think it's very reaffirming to see that this is true around the world. We asked people about their physical health. We asked them to rate it from 1 to 10. And you see here the difference between how people felt they were doing in terms of their physical health before COVID-19 on the left and currently on the right. And there isn't much change. Again, this is one of the most, I think, significant findings in demonstrating how well clubhouses are supporting their members and how basically well people are doing. Of course, there's some changes, but not much given the circumstances. We asked the same question related to mental health, how people felt they were doing from 1 to 10, with 10 being the best, before COVID-19, and how people feel they are doing now. And again, you can see that there's a little bit of an increase in the feeling less well numbers, but in general, a pretty strong similarity so that people are staying pretty well despite the difficulty of this time. We asked people for coping mechanisms, what they were doing that were helpful. And here you see a graph of the different items, how people responded. It may be a little bit hard to see, but walking is number 1, watching shows is number 2, reading is next, hobbies, exercise, yoga, meditation. And then as we get on into the graph, it's texting and contacting other members in the Clubhouse, family, friends, and other kinds of social media engagement. We'll have more details as this follows. These are the specific numbers for those coping mechanisms identified by folks. I won't take too long on these slides because there's a lot of information, but you get the gist of it here. Is the member keeping a daily routine? Most people said yes or mostly, which is the second response, which many people have identified as being very helpful to their mental health. We looked at basic needs to see what kinds of needs members might have now that we had this different circumstance, and we focused on things like whether people needed a food bank, whether they needed grocery or meal delivery, transportation issues, financial needs, and needs for help with meeting appointments or getting in for medication. And the top bar shows that the person did not have a need in that area. And then it goes to the need being met or not. And we asked for all of those areas, so there's specific results in each of those questions. Then we asked which kind of technology tools the members had and asked them to check all that applied. The first is telephone. The next is internet access, smartphones, and then a laptop or tablet. And again, here's the details. What barriers are there to the members obtaining or using these technology tools? Cost of purchasing equipment was a barrier 16% of the time. Cost of internet service about 12% of the time. Lack of knowledge about how to use these tools, 17.5%. Lack of knowledge about how to use apps or online meeting programs, 14%. And then we had open-ended responses to many of these questions as well that give us more details. We asked if the Clubhouse helped members obtain any of the tools. The top bar is yes and the bottom bar is no. And the earlier question refers to whether or not that assistance was needed. If yes, which tools? We asked people to identify. These follow the same order as before, the top one being telephones. What kinds of communication contact does the member use with these tools? So we were trying to get a look at what people are using and what we can focus on to make sure that we're reaching the most members possible. Did the Clubhouse provide training or technical assistance with using these tools? Check all that apply. Which of these forms of communication and information gathering does the member prefer? Again, to get a sense of what are people most using and what we as Clubhouses can focus on maximizing the use of. Is the member receiving enough phone contact from the Clubhouse? The vast majority of people felt they were. What frequency of phone contact does the member prefer? These go through daily, weekly, monthly, or not at all. Would the member like to have more contact from other members? The top bar are those people that said yes, and the bottom bar no. Does the member contact other members? The top bar is yes, and the bottom bar is no. And next we have Francesca Pernice to share the results of the director's survey. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. So along with being online, there's all these technical challenges that we're all probably learning to navigate through. So I want to thank you to everyone who's joining us today. This was an incredible feat that involved a great deal of collaboration and partnerships. Everyone came together at such a challenging time. So a shout out to the entire team, Clubhouse International, Fountain House, Lori's Clubhouse Magnolia, and Massachusetts, University of Massachusetts, Colleen McKay, and my wonderful, wonderful team at Wayne State University, Lisa, Amber, Jesse, who really pulled this together to help really capture the pulse of what's been going on internationally and nationally with Clubhouses. As everyone had mentioned, the main goal of this endeavor was to really support the movement, continue momentum, and even though we're not in brick and mortar places, we are still creating communities worldwide. So the two-part research agenda was really to get more in-depth information from the members, as Lori had just covered, but then to also sort of get a pulse of the organizational characteristics and how Clubhouses have been responding. So in terms of the director survey that directors are filling out, we're collecting it about monthly, so it gives you about a month to gather some information about how your Clubhouse is responding. And what we've been interested in really looking at is, are people who have been inactive in Clubhouses coming back? How have Clubhouses been reaching out to members who are out there, haven't really been to the Clubhouse in a while, but since the COVID-19 quarantine was implemented, this was an opportunity for people to sort of reach out and get back connected to the Clubhouse community. We've also looked at any losses related to illnesses, employment, and basically taking the pulse of the stability of the Clubhouse programs worldwide. So I'm just going to quickly go over some of these slides. And so far, after the first month, which we closed it out on May 1st, we've had about 14 countries respond, representing about 94 Clubhouses. The largest number of clubs are in Michigan for the state of the United States. We've got a large number of Clubhouses. It's a little bit skewed on this particular graph. Lori, if you want to shift over to the graph on the states. Thank you. And so most of the directors have been reporting on their Clubhouses, and in places where they have at least one or two, they sort of aggregated across all their programs. The next slide with the question of which of the following did your Clubhouse use to communicate with members? So how were Clubhouses communicating with members prior to the COVID-19 changes? And primarily, we still use the phone. And even as I'll show on the next slide in a minute, we still are using the phone. So it's the most direct and impactful way of reaching out to folks. We wanted to know to see if there's been some changes in the technology as Clubhouses and members have supported one another in getting technology, utilizing it, learning it on the fly. So prior to COVID, we've had phone calls, Facebook Messenger, Facebook very popular, texting and email. In the next slide, following COVID changes, we see an increase across all except TikTok. I still don't know what TikTok is, but we threw it in there. That's the only one that wasn't being really utilized, but you see, like, I thought this was really cool to see that people have really jumped in there, tried different platforms, and are navigating through this community space together. In the next slide, we were really interested in really understanding the stability, the financial stability of the organizations during this time. Did anyone lose funding as a result of Clubhouse? I mean, as a result of COVID changes. And there have been a number that, yes, they've been affected, but what we really want to keep a pulse on is the stability of these organizations globally. Are we staying afloat? Are we keeping momentum? Are we keeping people engaged? The next slide, we asked, has your Clubhouse applied for funding during this time? There's been a number of programs here in the United States, and I'm sure globally, that have provided some support during this time. So a number of directors responded with active activity, a number are not. So this might be an opportunity to use some of this data to support for funding needs, and that was sort of, you know, our thought in a way that we can help you, directors, the organizations, use this information to support requests for funding needs. Because yes, Clubhouse community doesn't stop. We're still moving. The next question we asked, and this is just a sample of questions. It's not a very long survey. It's really just taking a pulse. Has your Clubhouse received any funding? And we've had a great, at least half of the clubs that responded did indicate they did receive funding in response to COVID-19 changes. And then finally, one of our main concerns is, given that we are not alone and we're coming together and growing stronger together, we wanted to see, you know, how many members who have been inactive out there, sort of haven't been to the Clubhouse prior to the changes with COVID, have they been interested in reaching back out to the community? And this, I think, is one of the most important functions of our Clubhouse community. Once a member, always a member. If you haven't been there, this is a great time for folks to really reach back out to their communities. This, to me, was a surprising finding, that we had an overwhelming number of directors indicate, yes, we've had inactive members who we've reached out to, and they've reached out to us. So that indicates we're doing something right as a community. We're out there supporting folks that, you know, even though they haven't been into the community for a while, we still keep a pulse on them. And this sort of leads us next into our shared experiences and approaches and research and ideas for the future. And I'm going to invite Kevin Rice from Fountain House, who's been an excellent partner in all this, to kind of share some ideas and things that they might be, that they're doing at Fountain House that we're all sort of doing together. Kevin?
Yes, thank you, Francesca. So with this, we kind of wanted to use this time to kind of introduce some ideas that are kicking around that will probably be persisting even once we open up physically Clubhouses. And also some of the things I'm going to be talking about will hopefully kind of serve as a primer to the question and answer section that we're going to be having coming right up after this. The main thing that I really want to highlight and that we found really interesting and compelling from this work and other work that we've been doing around kind of documenting and tracking and figuring out who's getting access to services, where are the needs and where are they located, is, you know, there's going to be a lot of interest in our capability, not only as how Clubhouses have persisted and adapted, but also, you know, evolved and enabled a lot of our membership to enhance their digital literacy during this crisis. And that experience of being brought on board, and who was maybe previously only analog, who didn't have a phone, who didn't have a computer. And now because of this, and because of Clubhouses, we're able to be brought into the digital world, which in today's world is kind of essential to participate in a meaningful way in the workforce, many capacities socially, and it just is creating a whole new paradigm that we maybe are understanding about ourselves in Clubhouses. So what this surveys, these continuing weekly or monthly updates are enabling us to do is to identify how is that happening? Who are the people that maybe didn't have any of these resources or tools, or maybe weren't connected to the Clubhouse, and how did they transition over time? And also, how do these platforms persist even once we reopen up physically? So these are all these types of questions that we're thinking about, and also have really key funding interests for a lot of people moving forward, because there's going to be a lot of hindsight in healthcare and mental health once this crisis kind of abates and we're getting back to a new normal. And looking at where were the places that were able to innovate and keep people connected. When people were seeking help, where did they go to? Did they go to their psychiatrist? Did they go to their family? Did they go to their Clubhouse? And what ways did, not only was it just kind of staying in the loop, but was there an opportunity to also kind of enhance the skill sets and the sense of community and persistence of that community for the membership itself? And I think there's a really interesting story here that we at Fountain House and of course Clubhouse International and the community broadly are really interested in not only how are we doing it, but also what will it mean for our community moving forward. And so we're really interested in that digital literacy question, finding that member level data, who is it specifically, because there's, and how will they look at, how will those members and how will that data look in comparison to other data sets that are constantly being collected and looked at in public health and mental health and on government and local municipality levels. So with those thoughts in mind, we really want to open up and hear from you about your kind of questions, and we can have a dialogue about not only the utility of these current surveys, but also what kind of new and interesting things do they bring up for us in the future as well as the present.
Thank you, everyone. It's time for Q&A. So for those of you that have questions that you would like to ask, please submit your questions or comments in the Q&A panel located in the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Let's go ahead and get started with your first question. What was the most surprising results you have seen so far?
Maybe we could have Lori answer that with the member survey and Francesca on the director survey.
Great. Thanks, Lee. Yeah, I would like to share, as I think was reassuring and I guess surprising that people felt like they were doing so well. It's a very difficult, challenging time for everyone. And I think all of us were concerned that people might feel cut off, not being able to be together in the usual way that Clubhouses operate. So I think it was surprising, but extremely reassuring to know that around the world, members were feeling pretty good and supported.
Yeah, I agree. I was also like looking at the member survey, looking at people really adjusting to this new environment we're in. The other surprising finding from all the Clubhouses, well, first of all, that everyone sort of quickly adapted to an online format and platform and really got people involved in whatever capacity was readily available to them, but also the amount of inactive members that either reached out to Clubhouses or Clubhouses reaching out to inactive members. I think that was really a surprising finding, and it really speaks to the power of our community. And I think we are a model for the world in terms of how we operate as a community. It seems to be an ever-increasing important element as we are sort of navigating through this unprecedented time.
I would just also add, thank you, Lori and Francesca. I would also add, we were impressed at how quickly Clubhouses rallied to do the work to fill out these important surveys. It's a lot of work, and we really appreciate the rapid response.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that, Lee. That was, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been out there diligently doing their work during this time and actually taking the time to complete this. You know, it's not an easy task fitting it all in, even though we're kind of in a certain space wherever we are. So thank you.
And I'll just add to that, that what I've heard from staff and members at our Clubhouse is that they're really enjoying doing this. And so people were in contact by phone anyway and getting some of this information, but to really go further with it and have it all able to be collected, I think everybody's feeling like they're a part of something bigger that will help us all. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Your next question. How do you see these survey results being used in the future to help clubhouses secure either private or public funding?
Francesca, do you want to talk about the future potential of that, and then maybe Kevin?
Yeah,
as well?
I think we could all have, just rather briefly, I think it documents what's happening during this time. I think it documents that we're not sitting idle. And I think it documents that there is a place for clubhouses in this virtual space to be continuing the work that they do, and it's essential. So I think part of my hope of these results will support clubs in seeking emergency funds, in applying for funding to maintain their work and their services as an essential service.
Yeah, I want to reiterate that in the sense of there's a lot of kind of really time-sensitive funding that's happening right now. And I think the main utility of these surveys is not only the filling it out and us being able to share them on this webinar, but the system that Lee and Clubhouse International have set up to provide reporting back to each individual clubhouse. So they have in their hands ready kind of sense of who is my population has a need, or what is the kind of avenues or systems that maybe I need to address for particular membership. And that information is at your fingertips, because a lot of funding requires data up front these days, and not just data and figuring out how your effect was and after everything has been said and done. And so that's, I think, the main tool here is that, look, we know where the need is, we're able to identify it, and we can follow through with it because we have the tools and we've already done the preliminary work to identify what is needed to be done.
Thank you, Kevin. Anyone else on the panel want to comment on that?
I just want to add, I think that what both Francesca and Kevin mentioned are right on. And being an essential service, the rates of suicide are, and people's mental health in general is a real concern right now, as this is affecting everyone. And if we are demonstrating with our supports that our members who would be most at risk, people with mental illness already, are doing so well, I think that just, again, demonstrates such an impact that will help the world see this as an essential service that is necessary for people who live with mental illness to not only survive, but thrive. And so it's a great opportunity for us to get the word out.
And we've already seen, as we gather what clubhouses are doing, we've shared that with different funders and providers, and have seen them incorporate that right into the language of their state funding to help respond to the funding issues that are faced in different regions.
Just to add to that, I don't want clubhouses to be behind. I want us to sort of, be first responders leading this way. And I want to reiterate the importance of, what Kevin and Lori had said, that this data does belong to you at the organizational level, to help support the needs that you need, so that you can continue doing the important work.
I would like to say that from a fundraiser point of view, this kind of situation is helping us to bring out and to face digital divide and exclusion that often hits our members. So we can ask for funds to fight this digital divide and this kind of exclusion, just to bring all our members in the 21st century, and especially young people, they communicate in this way. And it's really important for our clubhouses to open this kind of instruments, tools, and communication systems, because we have to take care of young members, especially, a lot. And so as a director, I often have to ask for funds, and those are good points, are good arguments to ask funds.
Thank you, everyone. Your next question: are there other things that the team is interested in monitoring regarding how clubhouses have responded to the crisis and in the future?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with this. And one of the things that is really important because of the longitudinal part is it allows us to kind of gather everything's changing so quickly. We can look at the responses, and next month at the end of May, when we collect Director Survey 2, we'll be able to, like, if there are specific things that we feel like we want to capture in there because we're getting a sample of it out in the Clubhouse virtual world, we can add that and respond accordingly. Do any of the panelists have response to that question?
Yeah, I think the most exciting thing for us too is that this has created an initiative to kind of coordinate around the world a research effort, right? Where we're really bringing together comprehensively multiple Clubhouse experiences that are not just happening in a bubble in their own country or even in their own kind of Clubhouse space, but this has kind of built a logistics in the system and a precedent for when we send things out as an international community that, directors can receive it, members can receive it, and it can be consolidated and the data can be shared amongst ourselves. Because when we're able to show aggregate effects and more than one just, place in the world or even in more than one just Clubhouse, that just really speaks not only to the effectiveness of the movement, but also just a new kind of precedent for us to really bring to bear our teamwork and our collaboration potential to really show the impact and how many people are being impacted by Clubhouses.
Yeah, I would just want to add to that too, that those are the kinds of ideas we'd love to hear from all of you. So we're, as time progresses and people are still working in this way, it will evolve. As clubhouses begin to physically reopen facilities, there will be different issues that we're contending with that we can't necessarily predict. So we really encourage all of you to give us feedback and ideas about what you think would be useful to measure so we can collectively determine our next steps.
I would like to share with you also this point that the coronavirus crisis is really a very hard situation. It's a stormy situation, but it creates some opportunities. We need to manage this complexity because we can turn bad things in good moments, in good opportunities. And I think our movement, our international movement, it's living in this moment a great opportunity because we understand and we live together the same situation. And we are giving the same answers. Really, it's amazing how similar are the way we are managing the COVID-19 moment. And so this means that we are really very much the same, and we are very much on the same boat through this stormy weather. So it's a way to perceive, to feel the movement. It's just one movement, one big worldwide movement. Of course, I don't know how can I translate my from the Italian way, but this is the meaning. And so I encourage you all to manage this complexity, feeling that you are together all around the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Your next question: Are there any results that can be applied to general Clubhouse functioning, not just related to the current physical distancing guidelines?
Anna, who wants that one?
Well, I think that's a really great question, and I think moving forward as part of our future endeavor, as Kevin had also indicated, and Guido, I think we'll probably begin as we do this longitudinal investigation. And again, this has all been something that we voluntarily came together to do, so we get a pulse. I think as we begin to navigate through this future, we would like to add some information, gather some information on what clubs are doing apart from just the social distancing piece. So I think that's something we will begin to think about.
And if the question is meant, is there information that we could challenge the physical distancing? I don't think so, although I really appreciate the impetus because I know for all of us it's going to be really challenging to keep 6 feet apart when we're used to working together to cook meals, and you're never really 6 feet apart and work on computers. And I think that is going to be a very difficult thing, but it's necessary if that's what the guidelines are. So I don't know if that's what the question meant, but I appreciate that challenge.
Your next question, why this recent foray into research when it's been neglected in the past?
Well, I think there was such an immediate need and people coming together, and we also were hearing from a variety of clubhouses and regions that they were doing separate collections. So we just really used the opportunity to come together really quickly and figure out how to coordinate this. And it was just really a quick coming together of some complicated surveys. So I really want to thank all of the panel who were involved right from the start in pulling this together. We were meeting a couple times a week, and we wanted to get this out as quickly as possible because everything is, fairly time sensitive. We wanted to be able to capture the moment. So again, a silver lining will be, we're more connected now than ever before. We have these growing partnerships and these connections, and so I think we'll be able to build upon that.
Yeah, I would like to add, this was a very grassroots effort. It was driven by people involved talking about what's happening in clubhouses. And so fortunately, we had research people involved with us that could help us shape this to be simple and fast. And as Lee said, even given that it was not so simple. But we also didn't know how much people would respond. So as was mentioned by Lee, I think before, we're thrilled that people have seen the value and need for this. And this will illuminate that there is interest among clubhouses around the world to really participate in research. So the more we can design it together, like we do everything in the clubhouse communities with members and staff involved, so things are meaningful and people are interested, and it creates information we can all use and value, and it isn't imposed, which is never ideally the case. I think the more we can move forward in this direction.
Your next question. Many of our members are from low socioeconomic backgrounds and do not have access to IT equipment and data not being a priority. Do you have any suggestions to conducting a survey with limited resources?
I guess I'll start and then turn to the panel. One of the things that we've found in reaching out to how clubhouses are responding around the world is quick efforts to figure out locally how to get members more connected and get resources to different areas. lots of creative work going around that, and I think part of the survey will help us to share even more information on what's working and how to make that happen.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the directors and the member survey in particular identifies the people that are being left out because they don't have that digital access. And we need that information in order to, you know, make a case that people are willing and are interested and engaging, and it's not just that they're, you know, not motivated or so on and so forth. The main barrier is technology. And there are a lot of foundations, a lot of institutes, and a lot of programming that is very specifically interested in addressing the digital divide that is persistent, and not only in the world, but also in our community of, with mental health and mental illness in particular. And so having this information hopefully will help us address that gap. I mean, but first we need it in order to address it.
May I say that, you see, here in Europe now, we are in the second phase. Last Monday, here in Rome, we reopened our Clubhouse with few members every day. So things are getting better. And the survey we are doing now, it's a picture we're taking in this moment. But the coronavirus will pass. What we will keep is the picture, to know the needs that our Clubhouse have. So when you will reopen, like we are doing now, you know that it's important to help members to learn how to use digital device. You know, there are people that doesn't know how to use a smartphone, but it's really important to know how to do it. So, and it's easier to find funds if you know what you need. And if you can prove that you need this kind of funds to do such a thing. So it's very important to take this picture now, to learn and to know which kind of needs we have, and digital divide is a problem, so we need to solve this thing. And once the Clubhouses will open again, we know that we can ask for money to do courses, to learn how to use, you know, smartphones, tablets, and things, and to buy those digital devices and things. So the research we are doing in this moment, it's really important for many different points of view.
Yeah, I want to build off of that too, is that, you know, we often also think about designing things for our current membership, but there may be also people that we just haven't reached who maybe the digital divide isn't an issue. They actually have access to technology, but maybe they're not able to come into a Clubhouse, or they don't know about the Clubhouse. And if we don't have digital resources that those people who maybe already are plugged in and have things that have an interest and, you know, need mental health community, then, you know, then that's another missed population that we don't even know anything about. So it's not only just existing people in our membership, but I think this really creates a new world where there's people that we haven't even had touch points with, and that we can really create content and community and resources for that in a way that we really couldn't previously. So not only the existing digital divide, but also there's maybe people that are already digital but have no idea what the Clubhouse is, because there's no digital presence. So there hasn't been as robust as one as maybe we've created during this period.
Yeah, and just to add on that, a few years ago, the Center for Education and Leadership, or the Center for Leadership and Education, Kinga and friends in many of the Scandinavian countries, and I will make a shout out to Stockholm and Sweden, who have really taken an interest in closing that digital divide and had launched a digital inclusion project, which was part of an initial effort that we started 5 years ago, really to get this platform and build infrastructure in Clubhouses to do integrated video conferencing with other Clubhouses, with members. So unfortunately, this experience pushed us all into that digital environment quickly, but it has been something that has been on our radar. We've partnered with programs out there like TechSoup that offer refurbished technology at low cost that Clubhouses can partner with and get access to smartphones, iPads, whatever technology. And this, I think, has been something we need to make an argument that is an essential part of now our human existence. And that no longer, because of being a nonprofit mental health organization or a nonprofit organization, that we exclude individuals because the perception is that people don't need it. So an opportunity for us moving forward is to include partnerships with organizations that offer refurbished technology or getting our hands on good, reliable technology so that we can use it within our organizations and our clubhouses.
Thank you. And how do you plan to make the survey results available to Clubhouse directors and their communities?
Yeah, I'll speak to that one. We have a research assistant that's helping out with Michigan State University that's sending out, should have gone out this week, every Clubhouse director survey that was received, an aggregate report went to that Clubhouse, and on a weekly basis, we're sending out individual member overall reports to individual Clubhouses. For every Clubhouse that fills out 5 or more member surveys, you will receive a report, and we'll continue to share that, and as we get more information and clean up the data, we'll be do more specific reporting too.
Thank you, Lee. And how many European clubhouses have joined the survey?
I don't have that at my fingertips right now. Does anyone else on the call have a breakdown?
I think there were 14 countries. So if that helps, I don't know exactly how many European.
We can look that up. Go ahead, Francesca, sorry.
Sorry, we had 14 countries, and let's look here.
We had 4 from Sweden. We had 3 from Norway, 5 from Italy, 1 from Ireland, 2 from Germany, 1 from France, 2 from Finland, 1 from Estonia, 1 from Denmark, and that's the European countries. So adding all those up together seems to be somewhere in the ballpark of around 9 or 10.
And we're getting, and I think we'll probably get another surge after this webinar. We're getting lots of surveys daily. Every time we look at it, it shoots up. So I think that we can expect the number of countries participating to increase too. And if you have specific questions like that, please email us and we can look that up.
Thank you. And do member surveys need to be completed every week? And if so, could the staff who are checking in with members weekly help fill out member surveys, maybe including like using an identification number on the member's behalf?
I guess to answer that question, we do not need the surveys every week for every member. We want to, we want to be able to track change over time, like the longer that virtual Clubhouse goes on, does that have impact on members? So we're doing a rolling Friday deadline of member surveys just as a way to collect it, but we understand and appreciate that we're not going to be able to get a member survey for every member every single subsequent week. So so just as many as you can would be great.
Yeah, but I'd like to add that is the ideal. So depending on the size of your clubhouse, and the original thinking was that most often staff would do these with members by phone. So there's no need for the member to have any kind of technology besides phone. So members can do them on their own as well, as we mentioned earlier, and whatever works best is fine, but it absolutely is something that members and staff can do together. Keep up the good work, everybody.
Thank you. And I believe Anne from the Norwegian Coalition also commented on that. So thank you all for the great work. Best regards. So we do have another question for you. Are you hearing of any clubhouses or from clubhouses that are having trouble doing the surveys? And if yes, how do you plan to provide technical support to ensure participation?
Yes, mostly for the volume of clubhouses returning, we've had very little like hiccups. However, we do hear from clubhouses with specific issues, and we're coordinating through email ways to get the surveys done. So I don't think there's a lot of barriers, but again, we have research assistants that are having to get the data collected. So if you have specific questions, please email us.
And the emails come to Lee or myself. You'll see that on the email directions. And we are happy to help in every way we can.
We're going to go ahead and move into our last question for the day. There were several questions regarding how we can use these results to influence future programmatic policies, such as continuing virtual Clubhouse even once the doors reopen, and that will be addressed at a later webinar. For any questions that have not been addressed today, please feel free to email them to wanawebinar@fountainhouse.org. So the last question today, is it too late to start the surveys? And can I still submit data for April and continue on for May?
It is not too late. So please, yes, go ahead and fill in the surveys and get started now. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, team. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Lee for some closing remarks.
Okay, I want to thank everybody who participated in this today and all of the clubhouses who have worked so hard to get the surveys in so we gather information, and thank the panel for their excellent work in both coming together quickly to create the surveys and to present on it today. Very, very much appreciated. And finally, I just want to give announcements on we have the next two survey or webinars read in this series. They're going to be, both of them are at the same time. So Wednesday, May 13th at 10 o'clock Eastern time. We will be beginning the process of reopening of our clubhouses. So we'll have a panel of several clubhouses in different phases of beginning process of reopening. So that one is by popular demand. We're getting lots of questions about it. Should be a very helpful webinar. And then the following Wednesday, May 20th, same time, 10 a.m. Eastern, we will be hearing a webinar on our values, what the Clubhouse community is learning about ourselves, our standards, our relationships, and our flexibility. So we will be sending more detailed information out in the weekly tips and strategies that are coming out on Monday. So look forward to that. And we will hope to have many more joiners next week on Wednesday.
Thank you, everyone. Again, if we have not answered your question today, please send an email to wanawebinar@fountainhouse.org. The recording will be available next week, and the slides will be distributed tomorrow. There will be a short survey on screen once the event ends. Please take a moment to fill it out to give us your feedback. Thank you for coming to today's webinar. Please be on the lookout for announcements regarding our future webinars. Have a wonderful day.